Hello, friends.
Welcome to the Liberation Chronicles. I'm Robin Parker.
And I'm Jorge Ceballos. This is another episode of the Liberation Chronicles, a series in which we hope to give voice to liberation in our current historical context and discuss what it means to build a truly inclusive society. And we are so excited today because we have a special guest.
Yay!
Yay! Our special guest, and we got tired of talking to each other, so we decided to bring someone new in the conversations. Today we have our good friend Dena Samuels,
Woo!
who's going to help us talk about resilience in the work of cultural diversity.
Welcome, Dena. I want to give our audience just a little bit of background on who you are. Your background is quite impressive. Dena is an award-winning professor who taught at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. She now consults and coaches full-time on mindfulness, wellness, resiliency, and inclusive leadership development, and remains on faculty at the university. Her latest program, called Overcoming Burnout: Inner Self-Care Solutions, is widely sought after as a four-part series that provides hands-on strategies for building resilience, wholeness, and community. By request from her clients, her latest book, which is called Fast Relief from Anxiety: 25 Tools to Calm Your Nervous System, offers solutions to the common anxiety that occurs with burnout. Among her books and other publications is The Mindfulness Effect: An Unexpected Path to Healing, Connection, and Social Justice. We're going to be providing links to our audience for all of these. I just want to say, wow, Dena, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today.
What an honor, really an honor and a pleasure to be with you both. I adore you both, and I'm so excited about just having another conversation with you all. So fun.
Super.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, we want to have a conversation. We have just wherever it goes. We don't know for sure. We have some questions, as you know, right? We prepared a little bit of a script, if you will, but we also just want to take whatever tangent shows up and just go with that. If you're ready, we can get going. What do you think? Yeah. All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. So. Dena, the first question, and partly, obviously we both know you. We know a little bit of your history. Although, in preparing for this, we had a conversation. We found some new things about you. So I can see that we'll probably run into new things again. But just for our audience, mostly, if you can talk a little bit about how did you get into this work? What is the path, right? Because we all kind of find ourselves somehow in this work. Some of us may already know that that's what we wanted to do. I know for me, my path was very not a planned path at all. I landed, just by chance in the office that Robin was running in the state of New Jersey, and then the rest is history. Yeah.
Yes, Jorge just beamed in from another planet. And there he was in the Office of Bias, Crime, and Media
Ta-da! I'm
Relations.
here. But we all have our paths that lead us into this work. So, what was your path? How did you get into it?
Yeah, it's a question. It's an interesting question because it depends on the point of departure. I mean, I could go back to, I was born in Africa, in South Africa, Johannesburg. Spent the first few years of my life in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And what I always think about is that even though I was a toddler, probably by the time I came to the East Coast of the United States, I had already been given such beautiful care by by people that had dark skin, much darker than my family's, and who were so kind to me. And I think that I like to say I have sort of a more of a spiritual take on these kinds of things. So I think, it was sort of like what the energy that I got at that point sort of filtered through my life. And then if I fast forward to my career, I think about the fact that, I was always drawn to multicultural, intercultural dialogue, that kind of thing. And, became a sociologist, and then, taught in women's and ethnic studies for many, many years, was a founder of that program, in fact, at UCCS. And so thinking about teaching about social justice, I started off really in sociology and was very fascinated by things like race theory or gender theory, women's theory, those kinds of things. It was really queer theory. All of those topics were really interesting to me, and I was excited to be able to teach them. But what really sparked my interest to take a deeper dive, because I always I identify as white, I'm Jewish, I've got a bunch of other identities. And I think about it as I knew what anti-Semitism was. So I knew what oppression or discrimination, I would probably say, looks like, right? And feels like, right? I was a recipient growing up. And so I had that aspect down. I did not, however, have the privilege aspect down. I didn't really understand what whiteness meant. Even studying race theory, I still didn't get it. And so, what was interesting, and what's literally got has been the trajectory of my whole career, has been when my students have asked me questions, answer, and I'm like, let me look it up, let me figure that out, And so that's what happened. That's how come I took a deep dive not only into race theory, but also what it means to be white, what whiteness looks like, what I was missing, what privilege looks like, all of that stuff, and got very involved in that. And at the university, my university was very supportive. I had other faculty who were very interested in the topic and who had also been studying. So we kind of came together and we were like, okay, this is going to be our curriculum. And so we created, a colleague and I created the foundational course. It was like Intro to Social Justice Studies. This was back in 2001, maybe. And really, it kind of went from there. And it was all because I had a student who said, who had a question about race and what does it mean to, what does it mean to you? Here you are teaching race theory as a white person. And believe it or not, it was a white person who asked me the question, which is kind of surprising when you think back at where, where white folks, the majority, I don't want to use a big, type or anything, but it's kind of surprising it came from a white person. And here we are all these years later. In the midst of that, somewhere about 2010, 2012, something like that, I came upon some research that showed that if you have any kind of mindfulness practice in your life. So when I say mindfulness did not start with anybody who looked like me, right? So I'm not trying to appropriate or anything, but what I learned was that where mindfulness came from, it came from more spiritual, even religious practices, right? And if you have any of that in your life or not, or it could be going for a run or doing your artwork or doing your, whatever gets you in the zone. It turns out any of those things actually lowers your bias. So I got super excited by that research because I felt like, and there's tons of research now, like there's tons and tons of research that shows this is true. Right. And so I got so excited about it because I'm like, okay, I have my own mindfulness practice from my own deep, deep healing journey. And I had been teaching bias and implicit bias, unconscious bias, all of that for years at that point. And now all of a sudden my worlds collided and I was like, this is it. This is what I meant to do. And so I've been doing that. I brought it into my classes, my students were more. We want more. And they kept asking questions, and I kept sharing more with them. So it was great. It's been a phenomenal journey.
Jorge, if I could jump in, there's
Yeah, go ahead.
just a couple questions I want to ask. Dena, could you talk a little bit more about two things: what we mean by mindfulness and why it is that the research shows what the mechanism is, I guess I should ask, of mindfulness having an impact on the bias that we all carry?
Yes, absolutely. I can answer both of those. So, mindfulness has, when I talk to people all over the country, asking the question, what does mindfulness mean? What words come to mind when you think about mindfulness? It's always the same thing. It's always about present moment awareness, really being present, being
Mhm.
so present, in fact, that you're not really thinking about what you got to do or what just happened. You're really focused in this moment. And when I say what you got to do, we know the kind of stress that comes up when we talk about that. And when we think about our past, sometimes that can also bring quite a lot of stress, including, should I have said that thing to that person this morning,
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're in a mindful space, which takes some practice, right, to get into that mindful space, it's really letting that go. And it's not what most people think. Most people think it's clearing your mind, and that's not my practice, right? There's I don't know, there's thousands probably of different practices you can do, probably more, tens of thousands of practices that are considered mindfulness. But in my mind, it's something that you can do either in a traditional mode where you are sitting, you're seated in a specific way. I don't practice that way, but there's kind of like Zen is very, you've got to sit in a certain posture and all of that, which works for great for some folks and not for others. It could be, it could be at the grocery store and you're waiting in line and you take a breath and you are thinking about your breath. I'm inhaling, I'm exhaling. That's it. That's already a mindfulness practice. And I teach, there's a practice that I teach called the 10-second vacation, which is inhaling for a count of 4 and exhaling for a count of 6. That's a mindfulness practice. I teach it as a leadership skill because there could be chaos going on around you. You could be in a meeting. You don't have to close your eyes. You can just, in your own head, you can count to 4 and exhale for a count of 6. It turns out if you exhale longer than your inhale, it tells your body, it tells your brain it's time to calm down.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So what happens is, even though when you're done with your 10 seconds, where it feels like you feel different. So even though the chaos may still be there, you're not the same. It's like you just went on a vacation, came back, and you're like, okay, I can handle this now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, what about mindfulness impacts bias?
Yeah. Thank you. Um, So it kind of makes sense when you understand what mindfulness is doing, that it's kind of this calming of your brain. It's, you think about your limbic system, you think about your parasympathetic system. Mindfulness actually activates your parasympathetic system. And that's the one that, again, it's your brain is saying it's time to calm down, right? So when you think about that, when you're super calm, you are connecting with the person in front of you, in all of their beauty, whether that
Mm-hmm.
be, and in all of their differences from you. Does that make sense?
It
So,
does.
yeah. So if you're in a state, and the research also shows this, that if you're in a state of trauma or fear, which there's a lot of that going around. I'm sure we'll get to that too.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a state of fear, you actually backtrack to stereotypes much quicker.
Mm.
So falling
Mm-hmm.
back, your brain goes back to almost panic mode of what I
Right.
need to be safe. I need to be around people who look like me, who act like me, that kind of thing. It's really interesting. That's trauma theory.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I hope that answers the question that when we are calm, when we are in a state of calm, we're in more of a loving, expansive energy, and we're more likely to be not only just nice. That's not nice is not enough. Nice is not always is not what you need to be quote unquote multicultural. To make everybody feel included, like they belong. Nice is not enough. But if you're in more of an expansive space, which is, in my experience, that's what mindfulness does for me, just opens me. It's like a sense of love. It's really a
Mm,
sense of love and connection with other people, with the universe, whatever. That's for me. It may be different people get different things out of it. That's what it does for me. So
wow.
yeah, so it's that idea of what do you need? How can I be of service? What, that kind of, it's a different experience going through the world. Yeah.
That's really cool. Thank you for that. I find that especially interesting because often in the work of cultural diversity, I've often found that selling people pills that are hard to swallow. Oh, let's talk about privilege. Let's talk about racism.
Yeah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
But it sounds as though mindfulness is a pleasurable experience and that it's a useful tool. It's nice to know that there are some things that are pleasurable around the work that people can engage in, among other things.
It's interesting you say that, Robin. And some people would say mindfulness is too, a lot of people say I'm bad at it, or I'm bad at meditation, or I don't have time for it, these kinds of things. And so they don't see it as pleasurable. They think of that, it's a thing I have to do. And if you can, once you start practicing, I started with 3 minutes a day of meditation, and it was guided. There's so many apps now that you can use for a 3 minute meditation. That's not going to take a whole lot of your time. And yet, after the app that I started with tracked you, and I was like, sure, I needed to get this many days in a row and whatever. Um, and after 30 days, I deleted the app. I was like, I see the difference so much that there's never going to be another day that I'm not going to practice something. I'm not going to do
Hmm.
this somehow. And at that point, I had gained so many different kinds of meditations in my practice. I was like, I don't even need the app. But I encourage folks to use it if that's helpful to you. I only say that because I feel like people are, yeah, if they say they're bad at it, it's because they think they're supposed to be doing it right. And really, if you're just sitting and you are watching your thoughts, even I call it leaf on a stream. You put your thought on a leaf and you watch it go down the stream slowly, and it's still in your mind, but it's out here. And then all of a sudden you kind of wave goodbye to it and the next thought comes. And you can do that. So you're not getting rid of it. You're just have some separation between you, your experience, and the thought. You're observing the thought.
Hmm.
And that makes it so that it's not, everything you're thinking. You're not seeing the world through the lens of that thought. It's now out here.
Yeah. Well, it sounds really approachable, and
Mm.
as though I don't have to try to float on a cloud of ether and envision the Buddha or something.
Yeah.
I can do things that are more ordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I tell you, I am one of those participants that if you're leading the workshop, Dina, and you say, "Well, let's just close our eyes," and I'm like, "Oh, come on, now, really?" Like I am that participant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, and yet when I do it, I'm like, "Oh, this is actually really good,"
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I usually ask the question, even for people, if I'm leading a workshop or a group of folks or whatever, and I'll say, I use calibration. I'm like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed are you right now?
Hmm.
And, people come up with a number. And then we do this quick 10-second vacation as one of many, many tools that I teach. And at the end, I say, calibrate now. We're on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed are you? And inevitably, there's never been a time where it's been more. It's
Right,
always at least the same, if not way, way lower. So I'm like, well, if that works for you, great, take it with you. you
right,
know?
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it also, Dina, because I think it happens to all of us in different ways. The evolution of what we do and how we do what we do, right? We started with a certain frame, and then eventually over the years, we add things, we take some things out, and we create new things too, in terms of how we think about it and how we approach it. So I appreciate sort of seeing how, you actually started in a very academic way, and then you've gone into a more sort of body centered practice,
Yeah.
right? But I'm also wondering, Dina, because I appreciate where you started your story, where you say you're growing up in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and having folks taking care of you,
Mm-hmm.
that looked very different than you did, and you feel looking back at your own journey that was beginning to plant a seed in you, to begin to see the world and say, okay, what does that mean, right? And I know, I had sort of similar experience growing up in Peru, where I really was not thinking. My family was not necessarily, my parents were not necessarily social justice oriented. That's not who they were. But yet, growing up in that environment, and we had maids. The maids usually, not usually, all the time, were maids of indigenous descent.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point growing up, I'm like, why is it them?
Yeah.
And why do they live with us? Why do they not have their own separate lives? So it was just questions began to pop in my head,
Mm-hmm.
just because that reality, I needed to make sense of it, right? And that didn't really come into play until much later, where I really developed, now a deeper understanding of racial dynamics and, what I experienced growing up in Peru. But I'm saying all this to say that, I'm curious to know, Dina. So you pointed out that student that asked a question and made you, I never thought about that. Like, what is this? And all of a sudden, that opened a whole new line of inquiry for you to grow, as a person, right? I wonder if you can also, point to other moments like that. So that was maybe early in your process, maybe 10, 15 years into it, something else happened that also kind of moved you into a different way of thinking. Maybe even like, this idea of mindfulness, like how did that show up, and what was the mechanism that made you think, I need to investigate this a little bit more.
Yeah, that sure I can share. So the the thing that's like stands out in my head that comes up right away is so uh, without going into detail because you don't want to hear the detail. Trust me when I tell you. I had a horrific childhood, um,
Mm,
and my beautiful brain shielded me from a lot of things. And like many of us, uh, I was able to not remember it until roughly around 2010. And that's sort of when things shifted for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when, as I think Brene Brown calls it, I love the way she did this in her book. She writes break down and she like cancels each letter, crosses out each letter and puts breakthrough.
Mm, mm,
That's basically what my experience was, very much so. So there were several years in there where I was healing. I was doing a deep dive healing. It was I don't wish it on my way. I mean, when we talk about dark night of the soul, that's happened to me several times now in my life.
mm,
But that was the first major one where it was horrific. Um, and I had a lot of support. Grateful for all of it. I mean, it's probably the reason I'm still here. Um,
mm,
and came through that with a mindfulness practice as well as a yoga practice, then became a yoga instructor and all of this. I definitely was on a spiritual journey because what I thought was true in the world was completely, the rug was pulled out from under me when I started remembering stuff that I was like, oh, I
mm,
didn't think it was, I knew it was bad, I didn't know it was that bad. And so at that point, it was sort of that turning point was, well, if I'm not that, then what am I and what am I doing here? I mean, these deep, deep questions.
Yeah.
At the same time, so you go down this spiritual path and then learn about spiritual bypassing. Well, we're not, because the spiritual answer is we're all one, we're all connected, which is not true. Like, I totally believe that. And I also believe that I don't agree with spiritual bypassing, where we can say, well, we don't need to look at race, we don't need to look at gender or sexuality or anything, because we are all one anyway. And I'm like, no, that sounds like white folks not wanting to notice and acknowledge their white privilege. That's what that sounds like to me. So I was willing to do that. And so I had to do a little bit deeper dive of like, okay, what does this mean? I feel like from a spiritual perspective, I think to myself, well, I feel like I'm here in this particular body at this particular time. I believe it's on purpose, as I think we all are here on purpose. Yeah, so I don't know. So that really shifted the way I do social justice work, the way I think about it, the way I interact with other folks who have different, potentially spiritual beliefs than I do. It really opened up a whole other realm of doing this work. Yeah.
Thank you for that, and I'm sorry that you had a hard childhood, and we didn't mean to, bring that up to the surface. I know you've done work, so it's not necessarily hard to talk about it, but I just feel bad that you had that experience.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But then actually leads Dena into a reflection too about, in order to get to where you are now, you had to find your own resilience. So let's talk a little bit about that. And again, that's a term that I think, is thrown around quite a bit. I think for a minute, maybe if we can talk about, what does it mean? What do we mean when we say resilience?
Yeah, I love the question. I'm always learning. I feel like I'm always taking, hearing things and going, oh, that makes so much sense. I was listening to a summit recently, and I was like, it occurred to me, it wasn't anything they said. It was something, it sparked something, whatever they were saying, sparked something in me that I was like, resilience is too late.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I call my program, I call it Overcoming Burnout, because so many people are experiencing burnout right now. Like almost 80% of the workforce right now in the US say that they have symptoms of burnout. I mean, we are in, wow. So I call it Overcoming Burnout, but really what I would love to do is to preempt burnout.
Yeah, right.
So resilience, to me, this is my definition of resilience, is this happens, you're knocked off your game, and resilience is this. I'm here to fight another day, as we say. I'm back centered, I'm back aligned with my best and highest good, whatever that is for you. And I'm okay to, it's bending, not breaking, all of the things that people say, but resilience to me is critically important. Like, you can't do social justice work without resilience. If you do, you get burnt out like that. You'll be gone. You'll be like, wow, this is way too much, and I'm done.
I mean, I think, so many conversations I'm having with different folks, Robin and others, about what we're facing now, and how we all feel challenged and sometimes, dejected by this particular moment and what we're experiencing. And when I think resilience, I think about, folks that came before us. At a time where none of these language was available, right? None of this analysis was available. Folks were just experiencing things, and they figure out a way to get through it and keep it moving.
Yeah.
right? So to some extent, I think there's a certain amount of privilege for us to be sitting here in 2025 and talk about how hard things are,
Mhm.
um, when we can look back and see times are a lot harder and
Yeah.
people made it,
Yeah.
right? So just being able to access that sense of, yes, it is hard, but it's not going to stop me from moving,
Mhm.
right? Um,
I really love that you said that. I really love it. And I think it's really true. Some folks have, it's easy for them and it's part of their culture and their potentially their spirituality
mhm.
to know at all times that they are standing with their ancestors. Yeah.
Right, right.
And for some of us, that's challenging. Like it's my family who, you know, many of my family members who were not so good to me, let's put it that way. That's the biggest euphemism I can think of right now. But anyway, I say that to say it's hard for me to go there. So that wasn't my initial thought, but I'm so glad you pointed it out because for so many people,
Hmm.
that's critically important. Like that's how they can literally wake up in the morning and do more social justice, or I can do this again today. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. I need to remind myself often about that, Dina,
Mhm.
because yeah, there are days in which it just feels like I just don't have what it takes.
Mhm.
But I have to figure out a way because otherwise, like, what else, right? We'll just lay down and let it roll over us.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing
Yeah.
that. We're not doing that. But it leads kind of into the question of the day, Dina. The question of the day, which is, how do you, and this is for you specifically, right? What do you do to keep yourself resilient, keep yourself with the energy needed to face the current moment, the attacks that our work is facing in this particular moment? How do you do that? How do you keep yourself moving?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's an important thing that I wish everybody would ask themselves that question because I do believe everyone has something of an answer, like they
Hmm.
have something they could say that they're doing.
Yeah.
Might not have realized that. Oh, yeah, that's what I do. Like they might not have connected that that's what they're doing naturally.
Hmm.
I think it's really important that we all continue to ask ourselves and to share our answers with others
Yes.
because we're like, oh, you're drinking more water and you're calling that resilience? Yes, I am. Yeah, yes, I am.
Right.
That's something that's helping me keep healthy and
Yeah.
you know, keep going or whatever. So, like, there's so many physical things that we can do and that I do. I'm very we all know that some of the things you're supposed to do and I'm actually pretty I've got a pretty good practice when it comes to like taking good care of myself, so my physical self-care and all of that. Again, we when you stop there, you're eating well, you're drinking some clean water, which not everybody has access to. You're getting a little bit of exercise or a lot of exercise, whatever, if that works for you. These are the things that I do also. We know all of these and get some sleep, you know,
Hmm.
all of the things that we need to do from a physical level. But we can't just stop there. We have to actually look at what is our brain telling us every day.
Hmm.
So first of all, I just want to share a little bit about how the Brentford. I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist. I don't even play one on TV, but I've done a lot of research in this area because I'm so fascinated by how this happens, and it's the same mechanism as how bias works. That we
Hmm.
have these thoughts in our brain that are stuck in a rut, and until we uncover them, unpack them, we can't change them.
Hmm.
So it's a matter of kind of tracking what are we doing that's working and that feels good for us. So for me, I don't watch the news. I turned the news off. I don't even know how many years ago, but I turned it off. it's mostly because I know that having the news like coming to me, like consuming news is like direct road to burnout.
Mm.
Mm.
Because your body is literally saying there's nothing I can do here. You feel stuck and your energy like just withers. It
Mm.
withers. And so, we're not, I remember back in the day, Michael Moore talked about Canadian news was like all happy and, they were talking about, oh, the birds outside. And this is what it's like compared to what we had with all the guns flaring and whatever. It kind of cracks me up, but our news is not uplifting by any, right? I would talk about euphemism, right? It's really, it's compartmentalizing how much, how often, what we're consuming, how we're consuming it, and when. So if I know, like, please don't turn the news on first thing in the morning, right? Please take a breath of fresh air. If you have access to outside or access to looking at a tree or taking a moment for yourself, it doesn't even have to be meditation or anything like that. Just enjoy the moment before you get bombarded, and then just pay attention to your body and how it feels as you're taking it in. Your body knows. Your body always knows. Jorge, you mentioned before about the fact that I went from this intellectual, I was in that academia, right,
Mhm.
and down into my body, and that was just, I'm a social scientist, so I'm like, wow, my body's giving me all these messages. What do they mean? All I've ever done is paid attention to my intellect,
Right.
and here, and the rest of my body was sort of like the pedestal for my intellect. And now it's sort of, now I pay a lot of attention to what my body is trying to tell me, and I follow my intuition much more. Even in the work that we do, I follow my intuition. This person is not ready for me to say these words or use this particular language. So
Mhm.
I'm going to talk about it a different way. And I couldn't do that, but I didn't even know to do that before. Maybe I did it a little bit
Mhm.
intuitively, without knowing that's what I was doing. But I'm very intentional about that now, of really paying attention to what my body always knows. If I'm taking in anything, whether it be a movie that's disturbing or the news that's disturbing, you know, I'll just pay attention and go until I can't, until I know it's time to stop, and I'll turn it off or stop reading, or just, even if I'm in a conversation with somebody and I start noticing that my body, like, we all have to have that resilience of pushing the envelope a little bit.
Yeah.
Resilience means we can still come back. We can all do the hard thing and then come back. But if we're doing this all day long, we're really out of whack. Our body's
Mhm.
out of whack. Our mental state is out of whack. We think negative thoughts. That's what our brains think thoughts. Uh, we think 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
Mm.
Wow.
70% of those thoughts are negative thoughts,
Mm.
and
What's the percentage?
75% are
Oof.
negative thoughts.
Oof.
90% of those are the same thought we thought yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is out of Harvard. There's a Harvard study
Yeah.
I'm quoting right now. So, like, we are primed to think negatively. So when you get the news
Mm.
that's like repeat on repeat, you're sunk, right? You have
Yeah.
to actually be intentional of thinking differently.
Mhm.
You have to shift your mindset on purpose. You can't. It's not going to just happen.
Mhm.
Let your brain do what it's going to do. It's going to continue to think negative thoughts day after day after day. Yeah.
That's really amazing, Dena.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Just the number of thoughts alone is huge, and the percentage of negative thoughts. It's like you're listening to a record of bad news, mostly bad news, all the time. It
Yeah.
also makes me wonder, and I guess there's probably no answer to this, but I wonder sometimes whether not so much the news, because news is always traditionally been bad, right? We don't talk about too much about the good news, but I sometimes wonder whether political figures, for example, will inundate the public with just so much stuff, right? Executive orders, comments about, oh, I might run for a third term or a fourth term. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. And I wonder whether um, purposely or um, below the conscious level, that's part of the plan, right? It's like, well, we'll just keep throwing stuff out and it'll just throw people off.
Mhm.
Mm, mm. Wear people out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm,
absolutely. I think it's definitely part of the plan.
mm,
Mm,
This isn't
mm,
by accident that it's all coming at once and bombarding us over and over and over and over again. Because, I mean, we all know this, right? Working in social justice for so many years at this point, we know that when people are overwhelmed, they're they become apathetic. They feel like they're stuck and there's nothing they can do. So therefore, I'm going to bow out. It's too much. I can't. I got to bow out. I
mm.
need to protect myself, which is not wrong. Bow out for a minute, get yourself back in order, come back to your alignment, and then go out again. Do what you got to do. Do what you can do. Um,
yeah.
but I totally agree. This is total in my estimation. I feel like this is very much on purpose. Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that you're right. Many people who I know have said, oh, I just have to tune out.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm burned out. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to wake up in 4 years and come back to the world.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah. So thank you for putting a new perspective on that,
Mhm.
and offering people some solutions as well.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the idea, Dina, of pacing ourselves, right? Because these days, the information age, we have information at our fingertips 24/7. And if we let that sort of dictate uh, how we consume it, there's there's no healthy way to do that, right? The information is going to be there today, tomorrow, later in the day. I don't have to look at it right now,
Hmm.
right? And one of the things that I noticed in myself almost immediately when the election happened and then we started moving into this new phase, I started more intentionally looking to connect with groups of people, right? And luckily these days, because of the internet, we can access all kinds of groups. But like any notice that there's this group meeting over here. Okay, I'm going to be there, just so I can be surrounded with people that have the same values, that are also concerned about the current moment, right? And that for me has been incredibly uh, helpful to navigate this moment. If I
Yep.
didn't have that, I would just be sitting home, just getting beat down by all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm wanting to curl into a ball. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I appreciate that you said that. I think there are people like I spoke to someone recently who said that they're surrounded by folks who are in agreement with what's happening right now,
Mm,
and this person felt so alone and so isolated, and so joining some of the online things, if that's what's needed, do it. If you can do in person, even better, but if not, like, this is great. um, we've got access to so much now, and the one thing I would invite folks to look for as you're looking in your communities and figuring it out is the proportion of trauma bonding that's going on compared to the uplifting, community building,
mm,
beautiful,
mm.
space that are being created. So because there are some spaces where they're just wanting to, it sounds like the news again. You're listening and you feel the same stuff you feel when because people are saying, oh, can you believe this happened? Can you believe that happened? And the truth is, unless you are, a political, in Washington, D.C., which is not far from me, right? When you have to know every single thing that's going on, most of us don't need to know all that.
No.
We know some things, and we don't need to hide our head in the sand, but we don't need to know every single thing. If you miss the news for a day or a week,
Right.
you're probably still going to be fine. You're still going to have the gist of what's happening, and you're going to hear through osmosis too, through the grapevine or whatever. But can you believe? But if you're looking for community, I would recommend just looking for spaces where people are coming together, building a beautiful, as
Mm-hmm.
folks call it, beloved community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, 100%. 100%, my friend.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so go ahead, Robbie.
No, I was just going to say that I'm sort of a news junkie, but one of the things that I've done is instead of having, for example, CNN on or some other news program, I'll subscribe to the New York Times, which allows me to flip through the stories that are of interest to me and perhaps skip those that I just don't want to read through or hear about or hear someone comment about 500 times.
Mhm.
So there's a I found that there's a way to keep myself informed on the one hand, but not have to absorb every it's not only absorbing the news, but it's absorbing the news over and over and over again and getting 50,000 opinions on everything that becomes, well, overwhelming and feels like I'm going to burn out sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't think it's hard, right, to make the assumption that in this particular moment, anything coming out of Washington, particularly, the administration, is going to be bad. So, as you said, Dina, I don't need to know every detail of the badness. It's bad. Okay, fine. Okay, I'll find out later on how bad it is. But you know, me knowing it right now is not going to make any difference,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And that's another thing too, is just, you had originally asked the question about, what do you do? And I try to focus also on how much time I'm spending in the stuff that I can do something about and in the spaces that I can't do anything about.
Yeah.
And I try to minimize the latter. There's a concentric circle model where you're writing down all the things in a circle
Hmm.
that is all the things you can control, like what you're consuming, how much you're consuming, whether it be food, your water into all of those things, but also the news, that whatever. And the things that you can do, you have some agency over.
Right.
And then the outer circle is really the things you can't. And then just trying to remember, just bringing your mind back, maybe once every day or once every couple of days or whatever, how much time have I been spending on that outer circle? Because that is the surefire way to burn out.
Uh,
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I think that visual helps, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's just kind of loosely in your head. But if you have a visual, say, "Go, I named the things, I put them here,"
Yeah.
and then I can actually check, right? Oh, wait a minute, I've been spending too much time out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I focus on the things I find joyful, the things
yeah,
that, fun for me. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
So, one question also, Dina, and we've already touched on this, which is always beautiful because it's just the way the conversation flows, right? It's like it goes into things that we anticipated we wanted to talk about, and we already went there. but just to stay on this just a little bit longer, the idea of how do we pivot now in the face of the attacks that our work is facing, um, and pivot both in terms of what we're doing professionally, because I know again I'm having conversations with a lot of people in our field that are trying to figure out, okay, so I may not be able to do this right now, so I need to figure out something else, right? So those pivoted in terms, again, the professional, but also the personal, right? And um, for me, on a personal level, particularly, was right at the beginning of this nightmare. Um, I wrote something for myself, kind of along the lines of what you were just sharing in terms of what do I have agency over, and what do I not have agency over.
Mhm.
Um, and I wanted to remind myself that regardless of what we're facing, there are things about me and how I live my life that are not going to change.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? There are things, as you said, that bring me joy that I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to spend less time because now I'm paying more attention over here. I can't do that, and I won't. And I just needed to remind myself more than anything, right? That, hey, don't forget, there are still things in this life, even with all this craziness, that are good, and access them. I love music. I listen to music
Awesome.
every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the background, sometimes I'm just listening to the music and nothing else.
Mhm.
I love soccer. I'm a soccer fanatic. On weekends, I can spend Saturday and Sunday all day long just watching soccer because all these different leagues from different countries, right? So, and in that moment, I'm not thinking about anything else, right? I'm just watching the game and say, "Oh man, look at that play! Oh look, that's it." And then I have friends over WhatsApp that we're commenting on the game, right? So that's a joyful moment for me, right? So, and to some extent, I'm actually, I think, doing more of that than ever before because of what we're going through,
Yeah.
right? But what else? What else do you think we can do, or do you do? Maybe a little bit of advice, but also just simply, this is what I'm doing for myself. What would that be? That helps us sort of navigate this moment in a more balanced, healthier way.
Well, I love what you just said. I just have to say, if you didn't think you had a mindfulness practice, that those are all mindfulness practices. That
Yeah,
is actually because,
yeah.
like you said, you weren't thinking about anything else but, and it brought you joy. Like that's that. I mean, as Robin said when you said at the earlier, Robin, just the joy that mindfulness can bring. That it really is true. It's really true. So it doesn't have to be anything traditional. It can just be what you love doing. You could be out in your garden, you know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Mm-hmm.
a gardener, you love to garden. Or, I've been drawing a lot. I'm an artist back in the day, but like, I was a graphic designer and took art school for a bunch of years and stuff like that that, I love doing it.
See
And
that just I didn't know that about you. I just learned something new again.
so I've been drawing, and I ended up like creating graphic some graphic images, and I sent them off to my sister who lives in across the country, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome." She printed them out and she's coloring them in with her marker. She's using it in my art like a coloring book. And she's like, "More,
Wow.
I want more." And
Wow. That is awesome.
of a sudden I'm creating this Etsy store to sell, coloring book. Who like that? Like, okay, I can do that. It's just a little fun project.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about music. I'm in a band. I'm a lead singer and rhythm guitarist in a rock band, and so
Wow.
yeah, I've been doing.
Dina, what have you not done? Okay.
I have specific hobbies and stuff that I get so excited about. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm doing. So, um, anyway, that's a lot of fun too. So if I typically on any given week, I'm doing some artwork, I'm doing some, practicing my guitar, singing a little bit, playing with friends, hanging out, doing things.
That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's it, right? I mean,
that's my life.
we
Yeah,
gotta feed our souls. We gotta feed
yeah.
our souls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us are in our heads, kind of. I think to some extent is kind of where the work almost resides for the most part, or at least the way we've done it, right? And we forget that there's a spiritual side, there's a soul side, there's a body side, right? To what we experience and how we move through the world.
And it's so much better when we can have fun along the way.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that we don't take what's happening in the world seriously,
That's
but
right.
Nope.
I find that if I stay and if I'm with a group of people that always stay super serious all the time, it gets to be so heavy.
Yeah, agreed.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
oh.
My dear friend, and you both know Norma Johnson, the poet. She's the one who taught me about joy. Well, the first time she mentioned it, I've known her for 15, 20. I don't even know when. I think, yeah, close to 20 years I've known her. And when we first, kind of got to know each other, she started talking about joy, and I was just like,
What are you talking about?
I was like, and of course I'm coming still at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, the intellect of me, I'm like, how can you possibly think this is okay? And she's like, I don't think this is okay at all. But like, where's the joy? We have to, like, we're connecting in a way, and we're having fun together. Like, this is it. This is life. Like, this is what we want. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good point. So thankfully, I'm so grateful I learned that early on in my career. So I've been able to carry that through. But she was the one who taught me. Yeah.
And I grew up in a family and with a people who were in the struggle very specifically
Mm-hmm.
for African Americans, Black people, and their civil rights. Um, but they also managed to have humor, right? Often sarcastic humor, um, but
The
there
best
was,
kind. The best kind.
yeah, there was humor and joy. There was fun in coming together to eat. There were all
Yeah.
these things that sustained us, even though we were dealing with, frankly, life and death situations at times, right? But can't always stay in the zone of this is ultra serious, right? Got to get a little bit of a break, especially if you want to raise your family and you want to have healthy children, healthy relationships. Constantly saying in a state of stress is just a bad formula.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Robin, I remember when I worked at Guilford College, and we used to facilitate anti-racism workshops. And one of the activities always in the 2-day workshop was doing some racial caucusing. And the rooms were kind of next to each other. And we would go off, folks of color would go off and white folks into their own room. And then we got back together. And I'll never forget, it's like every time, white folks would say, like, we just kept hearing all this laughter coming. What were you guys doing? Like, we were talking about this stuff, but we were laughing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta find the joy, right? Somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't. White folks, for the most part, again, don't want to say all white folks, but most of the time, the white, laughter was not taught to go through this. No. Mm-mm.
They were so confused. It's like, we don't understand. How did you go?
We want to be. You sound like you're having fun, which you may have been, and also maybe not so much. But in terms of the sarcasm and all of that, there's
That's right. That's right.
some truth underneath. But for the most part, like, just that laughter, I think that's medicine. That's a mindfulness practice in and of itself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, speaking of that, just sort of a fun question.
yeah.
If I can pivot, um, and this is not only for Dena but also for you, Jorge.
Okay.
Um, do you have a song or a series of songs that instantly restores you? A song or series of songs?
Yeah, for sure. I would say the two, that one is a little more got a more meaning to it, like it's a little more heavy, and the other one's just like a go. We're going, which is
Mhm.
both. I need both, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we think we do need both sides in the movement. Um, there's a song, and I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called "Made for This,"
Mm.
and
No.
it's by Satsang.
Mhm.
Okay.
Satsang is it's an amazing artist. The Satsang is incredible. lots of great things. But made for this, it's really, I was made for this. Like I was made to do this work. What it is I'm doing, this is what we're here for, it kind of reminds me of the idea of, we're the ones we've been waiting for.
Mm.
Mm.
And the other one that's just a rocket, got to get to it, get up and get moving is Alicia Keys' New Day.
Mm.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
That you can't help but just be jazzed by it. It's really fun. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Jorge,
right.
what about you? Do you have a song?
Man, I mean, I have so many songs, Robin. No, seriously. I mean, I talk about like, music is my place, right? Well, it's like I need to feel whole. Music does that for me, right? And it's always been. There's music in Spanish, just an amazing. I mean, I have a Spotify playlist of Latin American and Spanish singers that I have so many songs that I could listen for 5 days without listening to the same song.
Mm.
It's just but it's so much as that is just like songs of struggle, songs of affirmation, songs of just simply love for life. I mean, so it's a whole range of stuff that is contained in that. And if I listen to whenever I feel like off, I just put that on and I'm good. It just centers me. It makes me okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And how about
I
you?
will,
Yeah. What about
well,
you, Robin?
um, I will often listen to the poet Nikki Giovanni.
Oh yeah.
Um, she has an album or two where in the background she has spiritual music playing, and of course Nikki Giovanni's always talking about things that I feel are revolutionary in some way or another. So I will find that really restoring, and also sometimes when I just want to get out of my head and have fun and not think about anything, I would just put on disco and listen to that. Yeah, I'm a disco child, right? And just dance around in private, of course. But just anything, So everything from Disco Inferno to Gloria Gaynor's "I Will Survive," as long as it's silly and it has a beat, I will definitely use that, and I feel better. It's like, oh, here's this old guy dancing around to music from the '70s, and I laugh at myself because of that. Oh, we'll have to edit that part out.
Well, hey, I would love to witness that at some point.
You have to go to my OnlyFans page for that. Right? Oh, well, here's another question. What's the most unexpected item in your anti-oppression survival kit? The
Huh.
most unexpected item in your anti-oppression survival kit. What would
I,
you say?
yeah, I would say something that I learned much later than probably most folks of color probably already knew this, but I didn't, which was the idea of self love.
Mm,
Mm,
That
mm,
I feel like if this is my belief. I don't know if it's true, don't really care. It works for me. But I do believe that if all humans really knew what it was to love themselves, I don't think we'd have oppression.
mm,
mm, mm,
Because I think that a lot of times we're blaming somebody else, or we're treating someone else as different. We're all reflections of each other in my belief. And
mm,
so therefore it's like, if I'm treating my neighbor or whatever as anything less than sacred,
mm,
it's something that I'm not doing for myself. I always teach, even in my yoga classes, I end the class with, may we honor the sacred energy within ourselves, within each other, and in the planet. And namaste, you know.
Hmm.
But the idea really is that, yeah, it's got to do with that sacred love that we have, you know, that we have for ourselves. We could, if we loved ourselves, we would know how to receive and give love. Anyway,
The
Hmm.
idea, it made me think about the idea, this phrase, right, that is used out there these days of hurt people,
yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
mhm,
yeah. That makes a
Mm.
whole lot of sense to me, Dina.
yeah.
Hmm.
Robin, you and I share a most unexpected item.
Uh-oh, what's that?
Pisco sours.
Oh, yes, yes.
Dina, I don't know if you know what pisco sours are.
I don't. I don't.
Okay. All right. So pisco sours are a Peruvian drink. Pisco is a Peruvian liqueur um, made out of grapes. And obviously, you know, over the years, I introduced Robin and others to this drink. Now, it got so bad, Dina, and this is the first time ever that we've shared this in public.
Uh-oh.
When we got so hooked on these drinks that we would make plans when we would go to the white privilege conference for someone to bring a blender. Someone would get limes. Someone would get sugar. All the ingredients. So we would get in somebody's room and make pisco sours.
Wow. Oh, that sounds like so fun and delicious all at the same time. That's awesome.
I think
Absolutely.
most people would not expect that, but
Yeah.
that's my survival.
Well, see, I've known you for y'all for years, and I never knew that. So that's great.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And by the way, Jorge makes the best pisco
Oh, there
sours.
you go.
He really does. He really does. Yeah, yeah, that certainly is an unexpected item.
Hmm.
Well, one last question. If your coping strategy or one of your coping strategy had a tagline, um, what would it be? And I'll answer it first by saying I think it would change, but I think right now it would be um, don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. I was always taught that uh, a couple of things, hard work, um, and especially in the work of cultural diversity, it's very serious. We're talking about people's lives, and all of that is true. But I've also found that I I do much better if I don't take myself overly seriously. Doesn't mean I don't have compassion for people
Hmm.
and care about things, but um, if I'm able to loosen up, let go, have a little bit of a laugh, and just let me be me, I am so much better. So I think mine would be hashtag don't take yourself so seriously. What about you all?
Right.
I'm thinking. I don't know. If you have one, you can go ahead, Dina.
All right. I absolutely love salsa dancing.
See, there you go.
There you go. So I always say, hashtag, if it's a hashtag, whatever, dance it out, you know?
Dance it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Dina, I am Latino,
Hmm.
right? As if you didn't know that, right? And I can't salsa dance, okay? I cannot. I cannot.
Okay.
And so it always makes me feel so inadequate when
Oh, no.
someone from other cultures can do that.
Well,
Ah,
is it just salsa or all dancing,
Oh no, I
Jorge?
mean I just don't have rhythm. I just so you know. Or at least I've been told all my life that I don't.
Okay.
I wonder if it's just you haven't had a good enough teacher. Like, there's some really great like bachata teachers that would, they really break it down. Left foot goes here and then it comes back. I mean, if you can, although you need to know what the beat is. So,
That's the problem.
that you might be out of luck. I don't know.
You know that phrase is like they dance to the beat of their own hearts, right? It's like I have my own beat. So the music does something, and I'm doing my own beat. So they don't match.
I have a feeling that if we combine the pisco sours with the salsa, that we could make some real progress.
That might help. That might help. Or at least it might help me not notice that I'm not doing it on beat, and I don't care.
That's the important thing, I think.
Right, right.
Well, this has been wonderful.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Dena, for making time to have this conversation with us, to be our first guest, not knowing what to expect. But yet you jumped in anyway, so we really appreciate that. And I appreciate learning more things about you. Right? You know, you're a musician, you salsa dance, you're a graphic artist. I mean, you know, give us another hour. Who knows what else we're going to find out?
I echo that.
Cutting it off now. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I echo that, Dena. It's really great having you here. You know, it was so nice of you to agree to be our very, very first guest. And I know that people got so much out of your time with us. And I want to remind our audience not only to like and subscribe the channel, but to take a good look at the links that we're putting in for your books and your programs in our comment section so they can take advantage of that as well.
That's
absolutely.
Thank you so much for doing that. And I want to say, you know, I want to echo what you said, Jorge, about, you know, you got to know some things about me that you didn't know. I've been so enjoying watching what you've recorded already. And I encourage folks, if you haven't, to go back and watch, because you both are just incredible, full, you know, strong beings of love. That's what I want to say. And it comes out. And so you know, it's been an honor. It's really been an honor. Yeah. And a true pleasure. It's been so fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Dena. Appreciate that. To our friends out there, please go back and watch some of the other videos, like and subscribe. That helps us, you all know, in this YouTube world and algorithms and all that stuff that I don't know half of it, but I know something works. So please please subscribe. That is going to help build our channel. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everyone.
Take care.